Yeah, I
You
can
hear
hear you.
us okay?
You got me?
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Well, Paris, you were saying you're out of American Fork. That brings a memory.
Spanish for it.
Spanish Fork, right? That brings a memory because when I was a kid, I had cousins live there, and I was about 12, and we had built this skateboard ramp. And the night before we were supposed to leave to drive to Spanish Fork to help our cousins work on their house, I had fallen and gotten a concussion.
Oh,
And my
dang.
brothers all just moved me on the side and like put me in the transition and just let me lay there until I woke back up. And then the next day on the ride, it was just kind of like so out of it. And then, yeah, it was, that was my
That's
experience. I felt like I was high for like a week while I was having to do sheetrock in Spanish Fork because I'd
that's crazy.
fallen about 10 feet down onto a nice wood ramp. So yeah, it was a blast. So nice. How long you been in Spanish Fork?
About 4 years.
Oh, nice.
I moved from
And you're,
from
it's south of Provo,
California.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nice. Well, let's kick us off. Welcome to the conversation where we unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping our world, including the population's decline and all the reasons for it. Your host, Joe Edgar and Ethan Krok. And our guest today is Paris Cluff, professional YouTuber and owner of Financial Self-Reliance, where he empowers individuals and families to master their money mindsets, having lost everything to building it all back. Paris coaches on everything from budgeting and debt elimination to retirement planning and legacy building. Paris, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me to come on the show. It's exciting to be here, and I'm excited to have a conversation with you guys.
So, something sticks out I think we got to dive into first because it looks juicy, and that is you lost everything.
Yes,
So,
I did.
I'm picturing right now like massive gambling debts in the middle of the night. And there's like loan sharks trying to loan you money, and you're trying to find everything. They're going to almost cut off one of your fingers. And then give us a little story of, how losing everything unfolded.
I kind of wish it was a little more sexy, kind of like what you just shared, but it was definitely way more boring than that. Basically, I had an opportunity to somebody, reached out to me as a financial advisor for many years. You get all kinds of opportunities, quote in quotes, opportunities, right? So I had this guy come to me. It was the
Black four. Put it
2008.
all in black four.
Yeah, right. It was the 2007-8 era, right before the collapse, the economic
Ah,
collapse then.
he had a great
And
real estate deal for you.
that's it. Exactly. It was exactly a real estate. So it
You
was
can't
it was this
lose.
right. It was a company that was, there was kind of a syndication they were trying to put together. I don't think it was an official syndication, but what they were doing was more like a syndication. And so what they would do is they would pool people's money and they would go buy properties and they would rehab them and then flip them. And then they would say, okay, everybody gets to share in the profit. And I was just loving it. And they were giving us returns every couple months. And
You
I
were
was
just
like,
on the
what if I,
investor side. Somebody else was doing the
yeah,
work.
yeah,
Nice.
exactly. I was just, here's my money, do your magic. And turns out that
Ponzi scheme.
the it turned, yeah, well, ended up being because because the company at there was a point there in 2008 when the houses weren't selling, when things were taking too long. And so the promise of return was every couple of months, and they couldn't sell the houses fast enough to get the returns, but they were using new investor money to pay old investors versus and hoping that they would sell the properties fast enough that nobody would find
Find
out,
out. Right.
and so unfortunately, they got found out and they came in and shut them all down. And unfortunately, at the same time, so that was a huge. I was one of those knuckleheads that was like, you know what? If my money is producing this, but what if I go borrowed more and
He doubled
invested
down.
that
I
too? So I'll
love it.
double down, double down on this real estate deal.
How
So
leveraged were you, if you don't mind?
it wasn't that bad. It was about 50,000.
Okay.
Um,
And this
so
you
it
borrowed
wasn't.
against your home, or
Well, I know I
tell
actually
me
have
there's a
I
loan
have it.
shark involved. I'm just
Somewhere. There's got to be a slow shark somewhere. No, it's basically
Venny.
I had really good credit, and my bank just said, "Hey, your credit score's high enough. We'll just
Nice.
give you a bunch of money and go for it." And I was literally months away from just paying it all back. But I was one of those characters that rolled it over too. I was like, "Oh well, roll it into the next deal,
Oh
into the
yeah.
next deal," And so. And fortunately, as a financial advisor at that point, I was a mortgage professional and I was a financial advisor, and I had a lot of my clients who were also in the same industry, and they were doing buying and flipping themselves. They opened up accounts with me, had money with me, and that I was managing for them because they needed it for their investments, and as they would sell, they would put it with me, and I would manage it. Well, their real estate wasn't selling either, and so all of them were calling me and saying, "Paris, we need our money. We need our." So I literally had to liquidate all my assets under management to give it back to these clients so that they could stay liquid and keep from going under
Wait a minute. Let
themselves.
me get clarity. People invested in you.
So I personally had a deal where I was doing real estate, and that was the scheme that I shared with you just a minute ago. And then as a financial advisor,
These are
separate from
two
that,
separate pools.
two separate pools.
So you're getting
Separate from that,
squeezed from both sides. You thought over here, you're like, well, I'm making a ton of money. I can help if I need anything. And then over here, it's like getting squeezed because you're like, everybody needs their cash. You're liquidating over here. And then you find out your
I'm
cushion.
screwed on the other
Your
side.
cushion
Yeah.
isn't so cushy.
So yes, I was being squeezed by both sides. That's a very good way to say it. And so it's funny. I tell people I could write a country music song about that part of my
This is
life.
nice.
I lost my house, lost my car.
Now, were you in
lost
California at this point?
Yeah, I was.
Nice.
And so I did lose everything. And I just remember one day sitting on my couch, just having hung up from a bill collector who was screaming at me and telling me all the things they were going to do to me. And, and I was just like, what do I do? How in the heck am I going to get out of this? And I'm a Christian and believer. So I was like, God, you got to help me because there's no way I can see you out of this thing. So I just had a really strong impression that I was going to be okay. And I just needed to put my head down and get to work, and ended up building my way out of it. And
Nice.
I believe it was, with the help of God. But I did my part and he did his, and
Now,
to get here we are.
I assume because it was 2008, and I think I read that you celebrated your 30th wedding anniversary. Did I read that?
Well, let's see. 20.
He's like,
what is it?
shoot, that's today.
No,
I can think of-
I was married in 1997, and so it would be 28.
28. All right, so close.
Yeah, I just celebrated 28.
What did your wife think at the time? What was that
Well,
conversation?
She was she basically told me not to do that other investment.
Oh,
And so
you were
I was
you
like,
were not telling her.
no, I told her I did it, but she was like, I don't agree with it. but
Speaking of
you're-
Christianity, when did you actually come to Jesus with this?
No, that was a very coming to Jesus. It was the whole. It was like it wasn't just a meeting. It felt like a
You were
convention of
baptized
coming
by
to Jesus.
death.
Yeah. So I didn't. It wasn't a one-time come to Jesus. It was a period of months and
And
it was a
she
couple years.
probably just held it in the I told you so. Has she ever said it? Because sometimes you don't need to say it, but you're like, just don't say
right?
it.
Yeah. That was one of the worst scenarios that I ever put us through. And so she was very gracious and kind, but she did give me some what for and say, don't do that again.
How many
please."
kids do you have?
And for years, she's like, well, at least I didn't lose that much. You know what I mean? She's
Oh,
Steve
she brings up old stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, but here's,
So now,
I've
see, because
kinda-
like packages come constantly to this door, and I just like stay quiet. But sometimes I do want to be like, come on, just stop buying stuff. But see, you're in a
Right.
tough spot now. She's like, remember when you spent
You
that
have no
50,000?
more leverage, Paris.
well,
You're like, okay, there was that one.
yeah, that's true. Well, today there's some things that, we've both done some things where we're like, okay, we've learned the lesson. And so we're both very cognizant of being kind to each other in our mistakes. So she had a significant health issues last year, which cost us, tens of thousands of dollars to help get through. But so we're good. We're good. Everything's good now. Yeah.
There's an equilibrium.
Well, but there's the,
Hers
that's
was
the
a
thing about
physical
life.
issue. Yours was a mental. Is
Yeah,
that-
yours was choice.
That's it.
You were believing. You were a believer.
Yeah. I was like, we're going to be rich. I would proclaim that from as I would walk down the halls of my office. Go be rich. Anyways, I did not become rich.
I take it you had kids. How many kids?
At the time, I had 4 kids.
4
I have
kids.
5 now.
And how old were
Yeah.
they when you were going through this?
So 2008, my oldest was 9 9.
Oh,
And
wow.
my youngest was 1
Okay. Wow.
at the time. And now that 1-year-old is 18. So, and I have a 12-year-old behind him.
Now,
So,
how bad did it get? Did you lose house? Did you?
yeah,
Wow.
I remember, I lost my house. I had foreclosed on, my house was foreclosed on.
Oh. And
And then I
what was that
remember
process? That in some states it takes 6 months.
yeah, so I had to they went through a whole thing with me if if how illiquid I was or liquidity issues. I had to prove I was in what's it called?
Insolvent.
Insoluble,
Yeah.
insolvent. There we
Yeah.
go. I actually submitted my paperwork to the IRS to be insolvent, and they were, wait a minute, you need to prove it and all these other things. So I had this interaction with the IRS, which of course makes everything worse. But yeah, I was insolvent for a little while, but the bank ended up saying, you know what, you're gonna have to move out. My business partner at the time actually was my brother, and so he was going through some of the same stuff. He had a couple other things that were similar. He was invested in the same real estate deal because his brothers were like, "Hey, bro, you check this out.
Family.
We're gonna be rich." Yeah, family.
Did you bring it to him or did he bring it to you?
You know what? I don't remember.
Yeah, you're
I don't
blocking that
remember.
out. You already answered it. We know now. We know now.
Yeah,
He blocked it out. That's
it
fair.
might have been me, right? So he were like, "Look, I can move in with you, or you can move in with me, because there's only one. We're only going to save one of our houses." We ended up moving in with him because he was going to be building an apartment out in the back of his property, and so we moved in with him for about a year and a half, and then we ended up moving out and building back. But it was quite this process, quite the lesson to learn.
Right. It definitely sounds humbling. It is weird how you get like the young kids, and sometimes just like their hug can take away all stress. It is like kind of a drug sometimes where you're like, oh. So I imagine some of that was relieving at times, but also to have young kids has to be blowing your mind to have 4 under the age of 9 and you're moving into your brother's rental. That has to be a massive amount of stress load that was going through your nerves.
Yeah.
Right?
There was times when the fetal position was all I could do, just to be real.
Yeah. I mean,
But
how did you all handle it? You and
So
your
we-
wife
we
stayed
just-
together. I assume there were some bumps
Yeah,
in
we
there.
stayed together. There's whenever you have a life-changing experience, you got to reassess what your commitments are. And we were committed and to staying thick and thin, and the
Does that mean you
vows we
couldn't
made.
afford any? She couldn't afford to leave you. So she was like,
So
I'm going to make you straighten up. She went with
That
the
might be part-
retraining.
that might be part of it. She was a stay-at-home mom up to that point,
Mhm.
so she went back to work, and she got a job, and she was able to put us through a lot of that. And then my business, shortly after that, couple years after that, I kind of got to the point where I was okay again, and then her job really floated us and got us back to where we needed to be. And then and then my business took off after about 3 or 4 years, and so we were able to buy my dad. What was funny is I didn't want to live with my brother anymore because that was causing a strain, as you can imagine, with
All right.
my 4 kids and his 3 kids and 2 families in the same place. But I said, Dad, if I'm going to move out, why don't you buy a house and I'll rent it from you? So my dad bought a house and we rented it from my dad. And then about 3 or 4 years after that, we bought the house from my dad,
Oh.
and he gifted the equity to us so that we could get a deal. And then we lived in that house for almost 10 years until we moved to Utah, where we live now.
Wow. Well, that's great. It's almost, you also have a story in there about, family really helping each other out. Your parents
yeah,
were still
totally.
around, your brother, how many other siblings you have?
I have 5. There's 5 of us, so I have 4 siblings.
Oh, wow.
That's
Good crew. Nice.
Yeah.
And you originally from California?
Yeah, I don't know how familiar you are with Cheech and Chong, but there's a song called "I Was Born in East LA." And
I was born in East.
Yeah, I was born in East LA, Golden Hospital in East LA. I was
Nice.
actually born in East LA.
Nice. Oh. My mind just went somewhere else with Cheech and Chong. So
Yeah, they got a lot of fun
I
stuff,
was
don't
bringing
they?
that- I always think of their joke about the bear and the rabbit, where the bear leans over to the rabbit. He says, "Rabbit, do you ever have problems with crap sticking to your fur?" And the rabbit's like, "No, I seemed easy. It's firm." So the bear wiped his butt with the rabbit.
Yeah, that was a funny.
That's a Cheech and Chong joke.
I didn't realize that came from Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, that's Cheech and
I've
Chong.
told that joke before, but I didn't realize it originated from them. That's awesome.
Well, very nice.
Yeah,
So you have a lot of family. They all stuck together. You kind of came out of it. It took a couple of years. You regrew your business. You regrow it with your brother?
No, he went
You
on to
learn.
he actually yeah, no, he went on to get into the movie industry. He actually
Oh,
created
wow.
a couple movies.
Oh.
Yeah, he's got some movies that are out of Hollywood, like some ones you'd probably recognize.
Wow. That's great. So that was a new industry for him too then. So
Oh yeah.
2008
Yeah,
kind of reset everything for him.
Yep, it sure did.
Wow.
And he got into the he actually won. I don't know if you remember that old show. It was the one where they had the it was
Green
one of those
Acres.
game shows. No, it was one of those game shows where you can win $50,000 if you win the deal. It was
In the
it
suitcase?
was like it was
You just described like
it
every
wasn't the
game show.
ninja. It wasn't the ninja one. It was the other one where it was let me just see, because he went on and he's been famous. They actually used his character because he won. They used his character in the game that they created for it.
Oh, your brother went through the game and won the game, and that's how. Is that what you're
Squid
saying?
Game?
Yeah, there's an old. It wasn't a Squid Game. No, it was
Squid Game, right?
Oh goodness
Hunter
sakes.
game.
I can't remember what the show was, but it was where you run down the. No, no. You run down the aisle and then you jump on these three big bouncy balls and you jump through
Yeah,
the
Wipeout.
Oh,
Wipeout.
wow.
Thank you,
Wow.
Wipeout. He was super short.
That's a legitimate sports game. So
Yeah,
Wow.
he won Wipeout. He was super shorts. If you remember
Ah.
if you ever watched it, or if your listeners ever watched Wipeout, he was super shorts, and so he had these short shorts that were really not appropriate for a man to be wearing, but he did it anyways as part of his ski. He had a cape and everything. He was like he went into the whole. It was awesome.
are you and your brother close?
Yeah,
Yeah, you've
yeah,
stayed
we're still close.
I think that's good.
Yeah,
I mean, every time I hear family members creating partnerships, I'm always like,
how did that go?
Yeah. it never seems to go well. They stay much closer when they have their own kind of industry and their own path. So, and you said your youngest now, or your oldest is 18. It was
No,
9.
my oldest is 26 now.
He
was 9.
He was
My
9.
1-year-old is now 18.
Oh, in 2000, man, it's been
Yeah, you're
20
old,
years
Jeff.
almost. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I know I'm old. I'm thinking like
Right?
2008. It's like 10 years ago. But no, that's a long time ago. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, I've been in Austin too long. What is your business now? You've kind of developed. When did you start doing really financial advising? Was that?
So my business in 2001, I got licensed as a financial advisor, and I could do all the retirement planning and mutual funds and all that stuff. And I got my other licenses to be able to do like assets under management and just act. Anyways, without boring you with further details, I was an official financial advisor. And 2015, I was like, I really want to be more of an educator. I want to teach, and I want to just maybe do videos or podcasts or stuff like this. And my broker dealer was like, well, you can't do anything unless you approve it with us first. And I'm like, well, every word I say, I have to approve. They're like, yeah, well, you have to tell us exactly what questions they're going to ask you, and you have to tell us exactly how you're going to answer. And if we don't approve it, you can't have them ask you that, and you can't answer that way. And I'm like, I'm too much of a cat to do that. So I'm just like, thank you very much. Have a nice day. And I went on, it's a little bit of a story, but I definitely wanted to become more of an educator and a coach. My business at the time, my health insurance business, actually blew up, and I was like, I'm really doing well with this. I'm just going to focus there. And so I kind of said, hey, have a nice day to my financial advising business. But then in 2019 or so, one of my buddies was like, Paris, you're so good with money and everything you teach. Because he would call me all the time with questions. He's like, Paris, what do I do about this? What do I do about this? And I'd tell him, and he'd say, you should do a course or something, and I could do a ClickFunnels, landing pages, and we'll make millions, another one of these we'll make millions deals. And I decided
real estate deal. They pay great
Yeah, that-
dividends. I
that didn't
guarantee
work
you'll
out.
get your money out.
I have no clue about how to do any of that website stuff. So he was going to do all that for me, and it fell through. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw all these videos on YouTube. And so I started a YouTube channel, and I haven't really made any money on YouTube, but I have gotten some leads from those videos
Nice.
that have helped me to make some money. So that's nice. And so most of
Well,
the
Ethan
time
and I
right
are in
now
the
is-
same boat. We know exactly how I feel.
Yeah, right. It's YouTube is one of those things where it's the dream of how much you can make, and then you get started on it, you're like, oh, this is a long haul. This isn't one of those get rich quicks at all. So now I help. My main idea is to help people turn their income into wealth. So if somebody makes a lot of money and they're like, what do I have to show for it? I make all this money. I finally got to the point where I'm making tons of money, but I have nothing to show for it. I'm still in debt. I still feel like I live paycheck to paycheck. Those are the perfect people to have me talk to, because I can help you develop strategies and techniques and ways to help you turn your income into wealth and really build something and have something nice for yourself, not just sell you a mutual fund or sell you an insurance product and say, see ya, have a nice day. It's more, I'm going to help you with your overall wealth, because money has more to do with habits, behaviors, and beliefs than it does with math. And if you really understand that the reason why you're in trouble probably is because you don't have control over your habits, your emotions, and your behaviors around money, that's where I can come in and help keep you accountable. I can help teach you ways to strategic saving strategies, how to get out of debt in record times, just all kinds of fun stuff that I've been able to help people with over the years. So that's what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm building right now. I still have my health insurance, my Medicare health insurance business, but I do mostly, I'm trying, and that's on autopilot. I just have to keep that going, and it grows on its own, but I'm really focusing on this financial coaching and business, because I really feel like there's a huge need out there for it.
I love it. You've won in a couple of ways. Your wife is still with you. You got your business back on the track. You seem to have put all this together. I want to transition. You talked about some of the trust people have, and they put that trust in lots of different ways. And so the basis of our conversation today is a fun one. Ethan has definitely been looking forward to this, but it's in regards, I fly often. And so, in fact, I don't have a car anymore. I just either am downtown or the airport. So now I just Uber, or in Austin, we have Waymo. So you can just take one of those anywhere. And whenever I fly, I now see these chemtrails all over the sky. I see them all over the place, right? And we have a new administration. RFK has come out and talked about these twice. His first one was in early August, where he went on Twitter and he said, "We are going to stop this crime." And it's of a 2013 video of a warplane. Basically, it turns out it is actually dumping aluminum out of a plane. It's very small particle aluminum. And so he's like, "We're going to stop this crime." Since then, it has become very popular as far as one point of evidence, anecdotal evidence, always after another, in regards to these chemtrails.
What's interesting, I actually, shortly after I kind of recovered and got back on my feet, I started really digging into, some of this stuff. And it's kind of fun, because I remember chatting with a guy at church one day, and I was like, "Hey, yeah, the stuff coming off the back of the plane, that's chemtrails." He's like, "No, it's contrails." We had an argument, and it was funny because he avoided me at church for several weeks after that. It was kind of like, okay, well, maybe I need to be more careful who I share this my thoughts with. And I took a real deep dive in 2014, 15.
He's Christian. He'll forgive you.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. So it was just digging deep into a lot of different things. And I got deep underground military bases, studying. I've got all kinds of stuff. But chemtrails, there's a really great website you can go to, geoengineeringwatch.org. He's a guy that I kind of started following at the early days, and he really talks about it. Now they actually have news channels where they're talking about spraying the skies with this stuff. And so when it was first several years of me finding out about what they were doing, it was like everybody thought I was crazy. And now more and more people are coming out with video evidence. And there's actually so many people now that have found, patents and other things. And even Bill Gates has come out saying, "We're going to find a way." I think it's Bill Gates. Yeah, it might have been somebody else. But anyways, if it wasn't, he's on the team.
Throw him in.
Yeah, he's on the why not? He's on the team that was probably deciding it anyways. He was at the council. He even said something about how we're going to try to find a way to create some layer so that the sun can't get through as hard and hot, and climate change and global warming.
Misting. They're going to mist it with water. They're going to think it'll reflect and keep the sun out. Right?
Exactly, back out into the universe, or into the whatever, our galaxy. But it's just interesting, because even other countries are now coming out with different things that they've shared and said about over the years with how they're trying to spray the skies. I'm actually a prepper too, so I do a lot of preparedness stuff, and I am in those the genre of.
Do you see that big smile on Ethan's face?
I lived in Arizona.
Brothers, do you all have like a special sign you can give each other? Is there some kind of like prepper where it's like, Freemasons where you can be like, you should do like a handshake or something. Oh, maybe it's the beard. I need to grow a beard. Then
I was stuck.
Yeah, it is.
I was stuck
A
in
beard does
Arizona
help.
for 10 years, so I'm very familiar with the preppers there. And while I was living there, everyone was telling me about the chemtrails in the sky there. And it's very obvious in the desert because there's no clouds. And so all of a sudden, you just see grid-like patterns of clouds going across the sky. And even people would have chemical reactions to it. And it's funny because back then I couldn't find much information on it. But today you can look it all up. It's done by the Desert Research Institute. They fly the planes out of one of the airports out in the middle of the desert where they leave planes they park them in the desert so they don't get affected by rust and stuff. But there's a company that flies planes out of there every day, and they're spraying it's called silver iodide into the sky. And what's funny is, well, it's not funny, but I live in Queensland now. And we actually have, you can look this up too, there's a university that's been researching cloud seeding for a while now, and we actually have a government organisation called the Queensland Climate Change Centre for Excellence, and they use silver iodide.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds like the Girl
They use
Scouts.
silver iodide to see clouds in just over the reef in the Pacific Ocean to try and encourage more rainfall in Queensland, which is crazy because one of these places is the ocean, one of these places is the desert. These are two places that I've lived. I have to imagine that there's probably a program like this in probably every city, every town, every state in the world, and we probably just don't even correlate it. We don't see, because they're all research programs, we don't see that this is how they are terraforming the planet. But the crazy thing is they're terraforming the planet and they're blaming us for it. They're on purpose. They're seeding the cloud. Yeah. They're modifying the weather. And then when we have these adverse weather patterns or changes in climate, they blame us for it. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's define where the argument goes between chemtrails and contrails. So chemtrails is saying RFK has actually said, well, because he couldn't come with anything else. He said it's in the jet fuel. So he's saying it's in the actual jet fuel now and being extracted as it goes. And so chemtrails are both coming out of planes that actually have either tanks that are releasing chemicals. And so the clouds you see behind the plane would be a chemtrail. The same thing, but a different word, contrail. A contrail would be condensation trail. And so as a jet moves along, it's changing the temperature, it's creating condensation. That condensation basically, because the heat coming from the jet inside of these cold clouds, it's literally creating a cloud under pressure and it crystallizes. And so it creates a cloud from this crystallization. So it's like, I grew up in a reservation. If you went out really early in the morning, the lake was glass, right? But if you put a ripple in it, all of a sudden, it's hard to see one little ripple, and you get a boat driving out there, and then all of a sudden there's waves everywhere. So the contrail argument is to say these are coming from contrails. And so that's really the division between the two. So I just want to put that out there. So
and there is definitely contrails, but even contrails, they only happen in certain conditions. And so the difference,
and it's only so long.
Yeah,
it's only so long after the plane. It kind of dissipates after a while. But the chemtrails don't. It's like you can see a chemtrail across the whole sky, and the plane's way over there, and the chemtrail's still over on the far side of your view. And I've even seen videos. I got a buddy of mine in southern Utah, which is more desert oriented, and so it's a little bit more similar to that Arizona type climate. And he literally has videos of planes where it's the same plane, where they turn it on and you see it coming out, and then it turn it off, and then it flies for a little bit, a couple inches across the sky, and then they turn it back on. I'm like, contrails don't do that.
It's like,
happy birthday.
Contrails don't do that. Chemtrails do.
Bye, Geico.
Right. It wasn't one of those, whatever those planes are. Those are the fun planes that you have the flag behind it. You see, I remember I grew up in Southern California, and I remember being at the beach, and you see those passenger
Austin
planes.
still has those quite a bit, so
Do
it's
they?
kind of
Where
weird.
it's
You'll
like-
see them flying around. I can't read any of the signs, but they still do it. It's like, what?
That's
is
funny. What is that behind that? What are you
It
flying?
looks like
behind
they're
that plane?
barely moving. These planes are like trying to pull this
Yeah,
huge
exactly.
flag that says. It probably says something like "full of chemtrails, warning."
Yeah, don't breathe
Right, don't-
for 10 minutes after I pass by. As a prepper, is that we get a lot into gardening and soil stuff. And so, when you're trying to grow a garden, you have to really get good at how the soil is working. And when you test the soil, it's like, why can't I grow stuff? Well, test the soil because it's been seeded. As this stuff falls down, sure, one of the main designs, of course, is they're going to try to weather modify. They're trying to create different weather patterns to stop certain things. They've even said what we want to do is if a tornado or a hurricane or something's coming, we want to be able to spray this stuff and mitigate the damage that this hurricane is going to have. So they even admit that they're trying to modify the weather. And I think sometimes it actually makes it worse. But us humans think we can mess around with what Mother Nature is doing. But when you test the soil, it's like this. Some of the stuff that comes out of it is not stuff that should be in your soil. Right. And so, where did it come from? If not from the fallout,
and the two evidence
comes down and hits the ground
for atmospheric modification, Mount Shasta, which is Northern California, they have found undesirable amounts of aluminum at the top of Mount Shasta. And so this is one where many people who believe in chemtrails have said, this is evidence that something is being dumped. How would you get this on the top, some of the newest earth in this country? How would you get this amount of traced? And so some have come back and said, well, there's lots of fires that went through. So there is some strange evidence that's put out there. And then do we have history of a lot of these type of chemtrails? Well, yes. They dump aluminum. The military dumps aluminum, microparticles out of planes to jam lots of signals. So it'll jam if you're bringing drones in or you're doing lots of things. It is done. So this is true. They do this. There is seeding, as you said. So seeding and the silver dioxide or salt. They'll dump salt, especially in places where there's already a big storm. They'll dump lots of salt. Salt, basically, once you put in the atmosphere in a microparticle, it will absorb water. And the more it absorbs water, the heavier it gets and it falls. So this is true. They definitely do seeding. And they have done the atmospheric one where you talked about, where they try to reflect the rain, or they try to take water and reflect the sun. This has been done as well. So there is precedence to these arguments that this is happening. So the real question is to what extent is this happening? And there's even some that have said they're adding the mRNA vaccine, the COVID vaccine. I was pretty shocked to read that. I think you shared that one with me too. I tried to look it up. And again, all of these, there is really no evidence. There's lots of disputing evidence to say it's not chemtrails. This is all contrails, and it's crazy conspiracies.
I think they've come out with enough evidence now, and we've found enough of these freedom of information acts have been received, and so they've found plenty of information that it is happening. Now, you're right. To what extent? And I was watching a lady who was talking about different things that they're going to try to do to bring mRNAs into our whole ecosystem, where they're creating vegetables with mRNA. They're growing vegetables with mRNA embedded in them. So as you eat your salad, you're going to be mRNA'd, And then she was like, what if they sprayed? Because I don't know if you saw some of the videos.
It's already in the Tylenol.
Right? I don't know if you saw some of the videos.
But luckily for me, I don't eat vegetables. So I think there's going to be some of us that are safe.
Pregnant women don't eat the spinach. Pregnant women don't eat the spinach.
Because who knows what will happen. But I do remember seeing a video out of China of them during the pandemic, where they were spraying stuff, and they were saying that it's helping to calm the people down. And I'm just like, what is that?
Is it MDMA or something?
Creepy.
Adderall for the people.
Yeah, I was like, what do you do? People are going crazy, so we're going to spray some stuff to keep them calm. And so I just remember that's a little lower level stuff. I mean, but why, if they can do it,
Then they get
from a,
hungry and they eat
Everyone's
all
got
the
the
vegetables
munchies.
with the
yeah,
mRNA.
if they can do it from, right? Hey, why do I feel, so calm now? So I'd imagine they could do it from the planes too, that kind of stuff. Why, dumbing down of America is one of those big agenda items that they have, or at least that's what we, us conspiracy
So it's like
theorists like
it's
to
like
share with
fluoride in the
everybody.
water. They're doing two
Well,
for one. They're making clouds
Yeah.
and they're also making us dumber with the mist, with the fog.
Well, you think about the different cloud patterns you see in the sky, and you see these clouds that look like waves and ripples, and you're like, how is that a natural occurrence? And they come up with, oh, this is a new cloud pattern that just invented in the last 2 years. Like, bro, come on. Clouds have been around for a long time. You can't tell me that just in the last couple of years, there's all of a sudden the Earth decided to change its cloud patterns. Like, you're putting stuff in the sky, and then you're popping it with microwaves and just different sound waves and other things, direct energy stuff, and you're creating these patterns across the sky. There's just no.
So-
to me, it's so obvious.
RFK Jr. has actually come out and accused DARPA.
Oh yeah,
And so
that's
this is their research arm of the Department of Defense. Why would DARPA want to spray chemicals? I mean, maybe the mRNA vaccine, maybe that one makes sense. They're trying to vaccinate everybody, but what other reasons would they have? What benefits would they have of dumping aluminum in mass?
And that's something that I get a lot from, conservatives and from people who are just trying to waken up to this. They're like, why would they do that? And my first reaction is, you know what? I appreciate that you're a kind and benevolent enough person that you don't even imagine that the human beings are capable of that level of evil. And so I get it. I get that you don't get it. I get that you don't understand it, because there's some evil people out there in this world that want to control everything. And so you think about, okay, wait a minute, how does this all relate? To me, you start putting puzzle pieces together, and it's like, okay, maybe if they spray this stuff, the crops won't grow as well. If the crops don't grow as well, they're going to have to find some other way to feed the populace. If you control the food supply, you control everything. Wait a minute, maybe there's something to this. And then you like the meat supply. You think about all the different, meat packing fires that, it just all kind of comes together as I watch the world and every different aspect of this. It's like, why would they do that? Well, think about the reaction, or when we get these chemicals in our system, what do they do to us? They cause us to be less healthy. We're more subdued. We're more dependent upon medicines and pharmaceuticals and doctors and the system that they're creating. It puts us, instead of having us have that healthy sovereignty of body, we're now dependent and sick, and it keeps us, most people are like, this is crazy. Nobody's that evil. Well,
I wish we could
You
pick
need to-
our drug that they would
Yeah.
spray down on us. They're going to be like, I'm feeling a little, THC or a little
Give us
bumper.
a little bit of
my
an up of the
neighborhood's got
day.
a whole bump.
It's a bit gloomy outside.
And maybe that does
Yeah.
make sense. I did notice, like, our entire cul-de-sac all picked the same weekend to do landscaping. So maybe that was like an upper day where it's like, oh, all of a sudden everybody's out doing landscaping. And then a few weeks before,
That's funny.
like, everybody's gone. Everybody's out. It's like, oh, a little downer. So governments definitely have taken an eye to this. The state of Tennessee has outright banned any type of seeding or particulates or anything exclusive of farming irrigation to be come out of planes. So they have actually taken an active stance. However, is it that crazy to think that the government might be doing something weird to us? And Ethan, you brought up a great one. You said fluoride. I grew up on a reservation. We were well water and no fluoride. And my teeth are pretty messed up.
Wow.
And I know my wife used to tell me, like, oh, well, my mother made me take fluoride pills. Like, we had to take fluoride pills. And when I moved to Austin, I was part of a group that was kind of like fighting fluoride. But the more I've gotten into it, I have realized, like, she had no cavities. Our kids have, like, no cavities. And my teeth were awful. So I have slowly kind of now questioned, like, well, maybe there is something about fluoride. Fluoride has an interesting history. The fluoride companies don't make that much. The whole city of Austin, fluoride, they only spend about $15,000 a year to put fluoride in. But it is a proven poison. So on lots of amounts, there's no question. Nobody questions. Yes, it's a poison. It is about the amount.
Why doesn't even have to be that sinister as well? Or Joe, even like the fluoride, like maybe the people who are weather modifying think they're doing a good job, right? Because if you think about it, the reason why we even have the fear or this, that
People can't think for themselves.
Let me tell you how we're told to think. We have climate change because people will freeze to death if they don't burn something in the middle of the night. So the Earth is too cold, all right? The only part of the planet that isn't too cold is the equator. The rest of it is coming out of an ice age. So maybe they are terraforming the planet to make it more habitable, right? And I'm saying this could be the other side of their motivation. It doesn't have to be sinister, but they're not telling us what they're doing because they're also using it as a method of control because they're making the planet warmer. They're telling us it's getting warmer and they're telling us it's our fault. So now this can control our carbon footprint, right? Like, so, it doesn't, they're just gaslighting. That's what I think. But I mean, there could be multiple reasons why. The fact is they're not being honest about what they're doing. That's the thing we can.
So in 1950, over the city of San Francisco, there's what was called Operation Sea Spray. And the Navy sprayed a bacteria, which is known as Serratia marcescens. I'm sure I messed that up and butchered it, but you can look it up if you have interest. And they were going to simulate a bioweapon dispersal. They told no one, and it ended up causing massive amounts of sicknesses throughout the city. So it's actually there's a precedent that the government did dump things over the sky without telling anyone and did make them sick, thinking they were doing something for the public good because they were going to test how they could use a bioweapon. And so there is precedence on this. So it's not like this is out of the blue.
Another thing that happens a lot of times is you'll see stuff like this in movies or TV shows, like they'll I don't know if you one that comes to mind right now is a really good one that was just out. It was why am I drawing a blank? It was a SEAL team that was sent across the country to do a job, but it was a fake job, and it's a TV show that was just out. It was
I don't watch TV.
It was on Amazon. It was an Amazon. It was
yep.
Terminal List. The show Terminal List, and it was about how the government set these SEALs up to fail, so that they could get out of admitting that they were
setting them up.
Yeah, so basically they created a chemical that they were going to create the super soldier, and they created a chemical and they injected it in this team, and it didn't go the way it was supposed to. So they made up an op for them to send them away to kill them on the op, so that they didn't have to.
It was
die.
It was a fruit bat.
They didn't have to die from the chemical that they put in them. So you're like, wait a minute, why is
a penguin?
So it's one of those things where it's like, what are they telling us in these movies and these TV shows? I feel like sometimes they're like, look what we did. Yeah, we're hinting at what we can do here. And so I think there's some of that involved too. I don't know. We can. There's some of it's like just.
I think you're right, Harris.
You're trying to get too much out of it, but at the same time, there's a little bit there that's like, wait a minute, I'm just going to watch.
I think you're right, Harris. I think it used to happen more in the movies. I think like in the late 80s and early 90s, they were telling us everything. Everything that you could now find on the internet was in movies 30 years ago. But now that it's on the internet and you can find it, they don't put it in the movies anymore because they don't want you to find it on the internet.
Well, what's funny is that I remember actually watching as a kid, I think I was watching one of these truthers, these guys who find things in different TV shows and videos and movies. But I remember as a kid watching like Disney show movies, Bambi and all the other ones, right? And today, if you go through some of these videos, Pocahontas, I don't know, some of these videos, you'll actually see they redid the clouds to look more like these chemtrails in some of these old movies. So they digitally remastered
like
some of the skies.
Simpsons.
Yeah, right. Or an X-Files. Right. I've been watching X-Files for probably too long.
It's funny because X-Files predicted COVID. X-Files predicted mRNA, whatever it's called. mRNA. No, it's mRNA. Yeah. So, as I said, an X-Files, that was 90s, wasn't it? So I think there was a lot of stuff coming out through that
Yeah.
series.
I'm from Oregon. Oregon has a strange history. At one time, they would take mentally ill, mostly African American women.
Is there that many
And
in Oregon? I didn't know that there were African Americans in Oregon.
There's actually a long history of, they basically said no African Americans allowed to move to Oregon because they didn't want to participate in any of it. So it is a strange state, but they did have some, and they made it so they
They had a
couldn't have
solution
children
for them, yeah.
without them knowing. So these
Interesting.
women, they literally controlled eugenics, and so this is a government
Yeah.
program. The federal government had, what is there? 399, so basically 400 black men they kept from receiving penicillin because they wanted to see reactions. So they had a cure, but didn't. So government does have a history of doing some very strange things. There is a large one that's going on right now in Camp Lejeune. Camp Lejeune is a military base, and they found out about contaminated water. And so instead of notifying everybody and doing something, they went through massive cover-ups and hiding and delayed. So that one's not so much a proactive way of harming as it is more of avoiding a liability. Yet the U.S. just humanitarian, the United States military in Guantanamo, they ended up giving soldiers, and over 1,300 were infected by bringing in both prostitutes and direct syphilis just to do testing on it. So that's something later President Obama had to come out and apologize for. So there's a history behind our own government doing quite a few things. And so they definitely is precedent. And oftentimes they say it is for the better of our
Science.
good. So, yeah, in the name of science.
I was just going to say, I don't know if you want to get into this, but there's a lot of those fires that have happened like in Maui and Southern California where they show like streaks coming out of the sky, and then everybody's like, well, why is the blue roofs not getting burnt? You know, so there's some stuff that's out there. If you do a little rabbit hole, you know, it doesn't take long to find some stuff, and you'll be able to figure it out. So that to me has all to do with, I mean, it's not exactly chemtrails, it's not exactly stuff like that, but when you have stuff like that happening, maybe some of these chemtrails make things more flammable. So when they need to take out an area, they can do it a little easier because I'm just putting out ideas here for you to kind of think about and
well,
say,
I actually went
maybe
to
there's something to
Walea
it.
and last year, and it is interesting that none of the hotels on the water burned. It is strange how the fire
Went around
very high, burned all the working class homes, but didn't touch the hotels. Another one that's interesting that is the most smoking gun ever of American history is Prohibition. During the Prohibition, the government was trying to get people to stop drinking, so they literally poisoned the alcohol.
Wow.
Interesting.
Killed 10,000 people.
Wow.
Intentionally poisoning. So, I mean, there's a strange precedent. Of course, they stopped it after it got out of control, but 10,000 people died of our own government poisoning alcohol and a way to try to teach us a lesson. So sometimes they do it intentionally, not for our own good, but for societal's attempt to be beneficial. So what do you think some of them are right now that we're in the middle of? Krok mentioned fluoride. I think that's a big one that it's controversial right now. It's known to be poison. Maybe in 20 years, we'll be looking back and be like, can you believe that, we had fluoride in our water? Or it could come back and it's, it'll be like, oh, fluoride wasn't that bad. But what do you think some active ones are right now that we're living through that are going to be, the finger pointing of our government knows what's best? And maybe it's Tylenol.
Tylenol.
Right?
Tylenol.
That's
COVID vaccine.
I'm watching all these people. They're like, we're going to take Tylenol just to show them that we don't need to be controlled. And then I got they're like, and they're dying. Like, why would you do that? Don't do that. Anyways, like Ethan just said, to me, it's the spike protein and all the stuff that's happened through that. Like all these died suddenlies, like major athletes, major stars, just dropping like flies out of nowhere. It's like, wait a minute, did they get it or not get it? And that's the funny thing, is that the people who got it, of the people who didn't ever get it and kind of made it through the psyop, if you will, in my opinion, none of us are feeling bad that we didn't get it. But some people who did are like, man, I wish I wouldn't have ever gotten that because of the health conditions they have now. I just mentioned, I just listening to a person who said that their husband, I think, said that he's blind in one eye now, and the only thing they can think of is related it back to these spike proteins that got in the system. So I think definitely that whole era where they got their stuff in the bodies of the American, the whole world, and we're starting to see some of the ramifications years later. I mean, even what's that, Dr. McCulloch? He talks about how they're still seeing evidence of in heart disease and other things, and there's plenty of what are they called when they're morgue core? I can't think of the name of the people who work at the morgue. No, the people who work at the morgue.
Coroners.
Morticians. Coroners, yes. I don't know why my brain wasn't working, but coroners have even said that some of the stuff that they've pulled out of these bodies is stuff that they've never seen before. And with the coagulation of the blood and all that stuff, it's like, what is happening? So I definitely think that there's that's one thing I think is definitely physically that the government's doing. Maybe propaganda, mental stuff that they're promoting on the airwaves is also part of another psyop or potential, but right now I think the physical stuff that we need to be working and worrying about is anybody that came through that COVID era can we say COVID and not get banned?
We can.
Nowadays?
No one watches us.
I remember for a long time we couldn't even say that.
But I think medicine historically has been like that. I mean, medicine has historically been like that.
Okay.
Just want to.
When I was trying to talk to you about COVID and I was saying it was like getting a lobotomy, getting a vaccine, right? Like once upon a time, getting a vaccine was the thing to do to fix your head. And I think that's what some medical procedures, maybe even chemotherapy.
Lobotomy is a great one.
I think some medical procedures are just placebo,
therapy.
and we're using them.
Even an RFK family member is a recipient.
Yeah, because placebo works, they use it as a treatment, and I think one day some of these treatments will turn out to have not been very good for the people that they were supposed to be treating.
Yeah.
Paris, what are you doing now as a prepper? How do you prepare for this?
Nice. Okay. Thank you. I just believe that we need to be prepared. Of course, there's always this standard, you're a doomsday prepper. What are you preparing for, zombies? And that's kind of the fun stuff. Sure. Yeah. You can prepare for zombies and be ready for that, and Walking Dead and all that era. But reality is prepping is a lifestyle. How many times do we lose our job in our lifetime? How many times could you have an emergency come up where you have a health concern where you can't work, so you need to rely on your reserves? And so the things that I talk about are, obviously having food storage, as a financial person, actually, we talk about having an emergency fund and being prepared for any of life's emergencies that throw at you. And I'm like, well, if you lose your job, what are the things you're going to need money for? Well, you're going to need to pay rent, you're going to need to pay your utilities, you're going to need to pay your mortgage, your car, and you're going to need to buy food. Well, what if you stacked food? What if you had food storage as part of your emergency fund? So when I teach people as a coach, I say, get some food storage, get some water storage, have a generator, have some of these things on hand, have a go bag. If your house burns down and you need to grab and go, go. Because just in our city last week, there was in Spanish where I live in Utah, actually, sorry. There's a house that burned down, and I'm like, I hope they had all their important stuff in one spot they could grab and go. And so there's just there's natural disasters happening throughout the world. And I think are these natural disasters actually natural, or are these natural disasters happening because somebody's modified the weather? And so there's I'm okay with both, because I do believe that Mother Nature has, for the course of the earth, there's natural disasters, but I also think that some of them might be Like, it's just funny to me how you live in Texas, Joe. So I'm gonna kind of use this as an example. It's just funny to me how the governor of Texas or somebody in Texas comes out, one of the people there comes out with some defiance against the government, and like the next week there's a hurricane, or the next week there's a snowstorm. Like a snowstorm in Texas, a week after they were defying.
An act of God.
Right? Yeah. Because it was a week. And it's always a week after they defy the government, right? So it's like, wait a minute, what's really going on?
Texas
people
has
need to
been
be
defying the
humbled.
government, though, is its entire
The people need
history.
to be humbled.
Yeah, it's like, but and so they have flooding and all. It's like, to me, it's like
We
that's
do get the
natural.
extremes. We get an ice storm. We get floods. It's like the extremities do come here. We get the hurricanes. We have tornadoes constantly.
Some of it doesn't make sense, and some of it's like, I don't know.
So in preparedness, you said first thing was get some food. You basically put together a storage food. I mean, how much food are we talking about? How do you store? Are we talking like dry cereal or?
Nice.
So what I teach people.
I'm thinking canned peaches, but I don't know anyone who cans peaches.
Well, a lot of times
anymore.
people get overwhelmed with a year's supply of food or a 6-month supply of food. They see these prices on there, like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get that? So I just say, when you go to the grocery store, buy whatever you buy for breakfast, just buy one more. Whatever you buy for lunch, dinners, just buy one more. You just build up a stash. And then what happens is you'll build up what I call a 90-day pantry. You have a 90 days of food. So literally when I have an upstairs pantry and I have a downstairs pantry. And when the upstairs pantry runs out, we go downstairs because I have 3 or 4 of them downstairs. And that's in my basement.
Okay, I was like, I'm thinking Texas, we don't have basements. So I'm like, you're gonna go up the stairs?
No, I have a built out basement. So I have storage rooms.
This is the bunker, Ethan. This is what we're trying to get to. The bunker. Yeah. How do you get it? It's got a big wheel to open it up. It's like,
well, you know that guy. I don't know what the name of the company is, but you know that guy he's been kind of famous actually. If you are in the looking for it, but he builds this underground bunkers for wealthy people. It's called. His business starts with an A. I met that guy, and he was at a prepper convention.
Zuckerberg's?
I don't know if he did Zuckerberg's, but he's one of those dudes that goes around doing that. And I met him, and I was like, man, I wish I could get a bunker myself, but. Yeah, I would just say have a 90-day pantry of food you already eat. One of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to go buy a bunch of freeze-dried foods or MREs from the military and think your stomach is going to be able to digest that right away. So those foods that's after you got to have a 90-day pantry. Then after 90 days, then you look at more like canned foods. I would say then cans of like even rice, cans of beans, cans of wheat, just stuff like that. Yeah, sure. Yeah. If you want to. That's going to be all of those vices are going to be
90 days of beer. 90 days of beer sounds good.
Yeah, whatever you got.
You said if there's a fire, you could grab something. So does that mean you have like a backpack very easily and accessible that you can?
Yeah, a lot of times people call
90
it a
days worth of
kit.
food. What are you carrying in this backpack?
So the backpack is just short term, just to give you the chance to survive for a couple of days. So you want to have. Some people call it a 72-hour backpack. And what we found over the recent years in natural disasters and the coming in after the natural disasters, that a lot of these places can't get to you. First responders can't get to you usually for 96 hours. So it's more like a 4-day. You need a 4-day supply that you can throw in a backpack. You need to have some clothing. You need to have some way to like shelter warmth, maybe some fires, some matches and some other things to keep you warm. And then at that point, for those things, I would say MREs might be okay because you're only going to do it for a couple of days, hopefully. And then, like I remember in North Carolina, they had that Ashton, North Carolina, they had the big problem.
That's what flooding. I thought about. It was like nobody could get to them. So
nobody could get to them, and they actually said that we had about 6 months worth of food, and that ran out in about 2 months, and we realized we should have had more. And so that was a huge wake-up call to the nation as to, and the prepper world of, hey, we think 6 months or a year supply, it goes faster than you think. And so that's why I tell people, look, you got to have something. Because right now, if there's a natural disaster, I think most of, because even stores they used to have a store in the back of the store. They'd have a big supply of food, and then they would just rotate that, and they don't do that anymore. It's at the moment.
Paper now.
Yeah, that's toilet paper, right? But
it's all toilet paper.
Even the grocery store, it's literally that day it comes in, they stock the shelves, and then the next day a new shipment comes in. They don't have storage for these anymore like they used to. So that's why so much stuff flies off the shelf. When you have an emergency or hurricane or anything in Florida, water is the first thing to go. Well, why don't you have a case? I have 10 or 15 cases of water in my basement right now. So I don't need to rush to the store if there was an emergency in my town. I could live for I could live in my house, not leave it for at least, well, I would probably want to leave it after because I'd go crazy, but I could probably live here for 3 or 4 months without an issue. I have enough water for that as well. So that's
wow. And that's you
several
and
months.
the family?
And I could bring my kids who've moved out now. I was like, hey, you guys can come down if you can get here, and we'll have enough food for you too. So yeah, I do.
It doesn't have to be a natural disaster.
mean,
Either.
there's
It could be something like a power shortage. Like we have every summer here, we have like a week
Absolutely.
or two without power, and they'll have 100,000 homes without power. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it does take a lot. My mother's tried to get me into it, so she even bought me a wheat grinder. And I'll be honest, I have never ground any wheat. I have a bucket of wheat, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, I'm probably going to starve if something doesn't happen. But it does make sense to really put something together. It sounds like something, especially Texas, where we do have so many of these issues. When we were in the ice storm, it was a week and nobody could go anywhere, and our water got shut off, and we were melting snow. I built a thing to melt snow for toilet water so we could have, because the toilets, they consume water, and you're like, well, I'm not giving you good water. So we'd create all of these different ways of trying to find water. We were stealing from pools.
Right. To both of those points, what Ethan just said about power outages and what you just said, Joseph, my brother lives in Austin, actually, Texas as well. So he was telling me that the grocery store powers were out. And when you have a grocery store power out, you can't use your debit card. You can't use your credit card. You have to have cash. And so how many of us carry cash these days? So that's another thing that I say, have a couple $1,000s in cash and fiat, I call it fiat currency, whatever you want to call it. But I really, we could go down some rabbit holes.
It is a fiat currency. So, I mean,
yeah,
you're not wrong.
It's not real money. Gold and silver is real money. Anyways, but we have this, if the store is out of power, then what are you going to do? You got to have food. My brother is a prepper too. So he was like, I'm cool. I didn't even have to go. He said he had neighbors come over to his house.
Wow.
And he was helping feed the neighbors for a couple of days because nobody could get food. And he was like, yeah, well, this is
barter and trade.
So there's.
Now, do you have face masks? Do you have, like gas masks, or what else would be included in a,
So I do have N95 masks just for fallout and other things. I haven't bought a gas mask.
Yeah.
The COVID era. Yeah. I haven't bought a gas mask. My buddy I have a buddy he's like way into it. Like I kind of, whenever I want to get inspired to make my prepping better, I go to his house.
That's why you don't know the secret sign. There is a prepper sign, but you're not quite in it. You're not deep enough yet.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah. So anyways, I do have some fun, but I haven't got a gas mask. I just got I have a dual fuel generator, and I have a power bank, a solar power bank. So I can run, if I do lose electricity, I can plug a few things in and live for a couple of days and be just fine.
Yeah, I go to Ukraine a lot, and they have become accustomed. Everybody has what's called an EcoFlow. These EcoFlows, you plug them into the wall, and then they charge up. And then when you lose your power, you can use them. So it is something I've said, man, I got to get one of these, because there's so many times I would find use to this. And I did see them in Costco a while back, but I never did get one. But
that's one brand. They're a good brand. There's several different brands that are out there that are really good.
Yeah, they're just kind of plug-in generators, so you have power.
Well, there's solar. You can the battery banks, you can actually recharge through solar panels. So the one I have has several solar panels that plug into it and recharge it. So I can recharge it at night or during the day, and then use it all night.
That's been fascinating. Well, leave us, Paris, with one where people can find, out more about you, and two, leave us with a little bit of advice of how we go through this world where we don't know whether we can get an upper or downer in what we breathe, and how we can prepare for it.
It's excellent. Thank you. So my YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. You can go to Paris Cluff, and you can look me there at Financial Coach. I have a free ebook.
You should run on a pun with Paris Cluff. See, this whole prepper thing.
There we go. I do have a free ebook that I give to people to help them like find ways to really discipline their spending and find cash flow, positive cash flow. And so you can go to pariscluff.com/free book. That's pariscluff.com/free book to download that. And, one of the things I just realized is that even if the world ends tomorrow, I'm going to still grow. I'm going to plant a tree today because I live that way. I want to live in such a way that I'm going to enjoy the journey. I'm not going to have destination problems. There's a destination addiction that a lot of people have that we will be happy once we get there. Well, let's try to be happy while we're on the journey. And that to me is just wisdom. I do follow and appreciate the Stoics and the philosophy of the Stoics. And I just really appreciate the way that they live their lives. It's like, we have all the resources to be able to survive and to thrive in life. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to be resourceful with those resources. And yes, there are nefarious people out there trying to do crazy stuff to us. And, but I don't want to live my life like the sky is falling. I'm just going to live my life. And if you tread on me, you're going to have a consequence. But unless you're unless you're treading on me, we're going to be fine.
I love it.
Live and let live.
Don't mess with Texas.
Right?
However, we are talking about the sky literally falling on us, but
right? Yeah.
Well, it's been a blast. Really appreciate it, Paris. This has been a great conversation, and look forward to following you. So
awesome. Thank you so much.
Until next time, everybody. We'll talk to you later.